happening in the world. And I cannot think of a better person to, for me personally, I feel very lucky to be able to talk to Michelle today. And I'm so excited that I get to bring her to you all. Michelle Atlas is a transformational coach who is a sponsor of Pitch School Live, which we had to postpone from Thursday. But we still wanted to come live. It was no question in my mind that we would do this live because there's so much value right now in staying connected. And personally, I have worked with Michelle, and she has served as my coach during the most tumultuous time in my life. And there's no one else who I would turn to during a time like this. I can think of no one better than Michelle. So Michelle, I'm so glad that, this was an easy decision to keep this live because we didn't have to leave our houses, but thank you so much for doing this. And I'm so glad you're here.
Oh, absolutely. I'm so glad I'm here too. The timing actually feels perfect, absolutely perfect. Nothing, at first it's like, when this hit, it's just been hitting so strongly over the last few days. And I was so looking forward to the event happening when it was scheduled. And then when it was canceled, I also experienced very much the perfection in that, and this sort of dropping down right away into a more, rooted kind of opening to in a different way. And so getting to do the live on what's really happening just felt like what a perfect opportunity.
Totally. Yeah, I completely agree. I felt, and maybe that's what we'll dive into first, is just kind of the emotions around having to put off something that we've been looking forward to. I'm not the only person who has experienced that this week. I'm sure there are weddings that were scheduled. There are, huge conferences and fundraisers and massive gatherings, basketball tournaments, everything. I'm not the only one that's dealing with that, but I will say that I've spoken about this on social that there was relief in making the decision finally because, it felt like the right thing to do. And just a profound faith that whatever iteration comes next will be the right one. So I know that you teach a lot about resilience and you've studied this beyond in depth. You've been a student of one of the most prolific teachers of resilience, and you've also taught resilience on the national level. So why don't you speak to that a little bit? I think that there's a lot of, I think pop culture awareness of the term, but what does it even mean?
Yeah. Oh, sure. So that's right. It's the word is being thrown around a lot, especially these days. So um, I could give all kinds of definitions, but to sort of boil it right down. So we're talking about how we use tough times and anything from hardship, loss to just day-to-day challenges in such a way that we actually grow and evolve through challenge, change, and loss. So
Mm,
don't just serve so there are two different levels, and people tend to blend these two, but they're quite distinct. One is just surviving difficulties, right? And that
hmm
so surviving tends to be like we temporarily leave our normal, but then we try to return to where we were. And many people consider that, and that is a form of resilience. And many people consider that as a resilience sort of success. And then there is a different level, which is thriving, and that is actually distinct
mm,
from beyond surviving. So that's where we use our hardships and our losses and difficulties to actually evolve into something greater than we ever could have become had the difficulty not occurred.
right. I love that. Actually, that's a really eye-opening concept that many of us may look at resilience, which is fine as a a way of like weathering a storm and returning to normalcy. But then there's this higher level resilience, or not to put, a hierarchy on it, but another type of resilience that allows for evolution and allows you to grow and evolve as you go through whatever that pressure cooker might be.
Right, right. Yeah, and that's really the minority. I mean, studies have shown that that is more of a minority that chooses that, and it can be chosen. So some people, wonder, am I born with it, or can I cultivate it, or who gets to be resilient? And so some people definitely are more predisposed from the get-go, but it absolutely can be learned and chosen, and it just requires many different skills actually, but this sort of the way that we respond to these difficulties is massively powerful, because we can't control so much of the external circumstance that happens throughout life, but we always have control over our response.
Right.
And yeah, and so responding with curiosity, respond genuine curiosity, which means not coming in with a negative assumption looking for that to be dispelled, but genuine curiosity says, I really don't know. Like, I'm really open to discovery, to
Mm-hmm.
discovering something that I have not yet experienced, that I don't yet know. um, you know Being able to show up with what we call optimistic expectations, which are not canned, slapping a canned positive spin on something that is dire and grave, like what some people are experiencing right now. But optimistic expectations basically just means that we may not know how we're going to find our way, but we know we're going to. It's going to be revealed to us. We're going to figure it out. We might not have answers now. We might not feel great now, but we're going to figure it out. So it's more that spirit of inquiry and that spirit of courage and openness and discovery and creativity. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. And I think too also this belief that or yeah, and I know for me one of the things is really holding the belief, from a realistic perspective, but holding the belief that whatever comes next is going to be, the best possible iteration of what was planned.
Precisely. It's like, yes, exactly. And so it's looking for what's different, um, there are many losses, but what's opening up, what's becoming
Right.
possible that may not have been possible until now.
Right.
Yeah, and there's a bit of a tightrope walk, and because particularly in personal development, we like we there's a lot of teaching on gratitude, which is really super powerful and super transformative. Gratitude even impacts. I'm hearing a little. Gratitude even
My little
impacts.
photo bomber.
Yes.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure what it was.
Go
Yeah.
ahead, Michelle. You were talking about gratitude.
Yeah, just that. Well, obviously, it's super powerful and super transformational and affects the brain. And I mean, there's no doubt. But it's we also have to be careful not to. It can't be. It doesn't work if it's artificial. It doesn't work if, again, we slap that onto a difficulty prematurely
Right.
before we've really arrived at an authentic experience of connection to gratitude for whatever.
Right.
So I'm always careful. It's a fine line, between being open and receiving, being open to um, the mystery of what's really opening up when our normal is taken away, without rapidly grasping onto some new positive before we're genuinely there.
Right. 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 Yeah. So, one of the things that I think is so important is that you and I first met it had to have been, I mean, it was a long time ago. I'm trying to remember
Oh,
exactly.
how many years ago?
Yeah. Yeah, it had to have been. I don't know if I had Lola at that point or not,
I think you
actually.
had just, I think, actually, I think you might have like, she was like an infant, I think. I think she was
Okay.
a newborn.
Okay, so 6 years ago, that would put a timeline on it. So we met, over half a decade ago, and the first time we met was at an in-person event. And I think you and I both subscribe to the power of really connecting and meeting in person. And so right now, that's not really a viable opportunity or an option. So how, but also, and staying connected is so vitally important because that's how we survive. We're communal creatures. So
Right.
what are you doing? Not, I'll ask you your expert opinion if you have one, but also just your personal experience. What are you doing to stay connected to humans right
Yeah.
now?
Yeah. That's a great question. So what I sort of, I guess what I'm doing business wise and personally overlap. And
Mm.
um, it to some degree. What I'm experiencing is this sort of, I guess maybe I said it to begin with, this really visceral sense of like rooting, more deeply in place, like really
Mm-hmm.
just kind of dropping more deeply into my body, into being grounded here, right here in my home and on this earth and right where I am.
Mm-hmm.
And, without all the running and the grasping and the doing and the get here, get there and whatever. Um, and, um, and so in that place, that internal space, I'm feeling more present in a sense than ever to the connection that can happen virtually and or on the phone or where, in all the ways that we can connect safely and fully. And so I'm loving this sense. For me, it feels like it's like sort of bringing in my energies and kind of centering myself more
Mm.
deeply, and consolidating rather than like, okay, I'm going to go here and then I'm going to get online and then I'm going to go meet with, it's
Right.
right. It's like, oh, well, I have to, this, I'm just going to focus right here and bring all of me in. And then it's like there's an opening to a much broader, deeper experience of this. And so I'm launching my own free private Facebook group, within a matter of, a week or days. Right now, I'm in the process of putting that together. I'm going to be offering a bunch of free training in that group that speaks directly to this journey that we're all on right now. And, I'm just feeling like a lot of energy and inspiration around. I just started to write more to my community, and it's coming from a deep place that's very energizing to me. And I'm engaging people in a more conversational way about what kind of support they need. And I'm going to be providing it, that way. So,
I love that. I love that. Yeah, it's really an opportunity. I keep thinking this. I had this realization over the weekend that on a personal level, I feel called to step into leadership right now, especially because I had this big thing planned and then everyone was sort of like kerplunk. So it's time to it's
right.
time to step into leadership and continue to foster that conversation that we were planning on having. But even so, on a grander scale, I think that that's something that I can teach, and all of us who can teach this process of stepping into leadership, like you teach it on a very spiritual and self knowledge and personal growth level, that we all need to step into helping others rise and find their unique sense of leadership right now, even if it's in their own homes. So I applaud that effort, and I'll be there. I'll be there in the group. I mean, I drink in all of your teaching, so that's really great. I can't wait for that. But I love this notion too of really like laser focus, or giving, it's really much more about giving yourself permission or stepping into the possibility that opens up when you can just focus on this one thing of connecting with people virtually or on the phone and pouring all of your energy into that one tactic. And that's really something that kind of organically happens in what I teach, because I always want my clients to find ways to connect with others in the way that makes the most sense for them. And so right now it's really like, this is the one way. So
Yeah,
you may as well step into it.
right, more fully, exactly. Like
Yeah.
there's no excuse now to say, well, I'm too busy to do, to do a live or to do a, whatever. It's like, this is it, babe, and
Right. Yep. Exactly. You have nowhere to go.
right, right. And
Yeah.
I just love what you just said. I just wanted to comment. I just adore what you just said about everybody, being an incredible opportunity for everybody, particularly women or particularly the feminine, which is not gender specific, to step into their own unique kind of leadership. And
Yes.
it's going to be, and that's the beauty of it. It's like there's this, I feel like there's in this sort of, um, in the fact that this sort of dissipated way of operating is being taken away, there's such a huge opening in this one space, and there's room for everybody. And
Yeah.
so like there's room for everybody to be a leader, to be their unique,
Yes.
beautiful leader self, and discover that, and be supported by everybody else too. So I'm just feeling that as well very strongly. And
Yeah.
it's sort of magically kind of something about this time. I'm not sure, I haven't quite put my finger on what it is, but something about this time magically seems to be reducing that sense of subtle sense of comparing, and
Mm-hmm.
like, if they do it, I can't do it, or they did it better, so why should I do it? Or all that kind of stuff that, even those of us who kind of know better, it's subtle. It's like a little insidious, subtle, you know, current that runs through our lives. But it seems like that is even evaporating, and something really supportive and beautiful is opening up.
Yeah, I totally agree. Well, I'm really excited that, yeah, this conversation, even in its brevity, I have taken away so many useful kind of points for consideration. And I really look forward to keeping the conversation about this type of evolutionary resilience going. I think that that's really powerful. And I look forward to keeping it going with you too. So I'm definitely going to join that group. I encourage anyone who is listening or watching right now to join us on Thursday. We are still doing a masterclass, and it's going to also be about stepping into your unique leadership right now, the kind of leadership that feels like it's emerging from you and also feels connected to what's happening in the world right now. And we're also going to talk about how in this stage of the game, you can still be visible on behalf of your business. And I think that there will also be some elements of crisis communication in there, which I've experienced in working in the corporate world. So I'm excited to translate that for the entrepreneur. So we're going to have a masterclass on Thursday from 12 noon Eastern time to 3, all about these particular pillars. And you can get to that by just getting on my email list. And we're sending the link out to everyone who's on my list. So you don't have to be registered. You don't have to have been registered for the event. You can join us regardless. So Michelle, where can we learn more about you and your pop-up Facebook group and everything you're doing right now?
Yeah. So I would say just go to michelleatlas.com, and certainly you can friend me on Facebook, and you can join my business page, which is Michelle Atlas Coaching. But I would say get onto my free newsletter, which go to michelleatlas.com and just sign up for my newsletter, and you'll get all my blog posts, which will tell you everything that I'm up to, and also be very frequently sharing wisdom about all this now.
Perfect. Yeah. And I can't say it enough, Michelle. You are such a light and a resource, a valuable resource during a tumultuous time, whether it's a tumultuous time for the world or a tumultuous time for each of us personally. I can't recommend your work enough. And I hope that everyone watching goes and checks you out.
Thanks so much. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thank you for doing this, Michelle.
Yeah, it was wonderful. Absolutely wonderful. Another uplifting moment in the day.
Same here. Thank you.
Bye.